Hello and welcome to the Wise Yourself Up podcast. I am your host, Carla McGreevy, and in today's episode we're going to talk about growing older, wiser, hotter. This is my second time recording this episode and I just have the fear. I keep on stopping every 5 minutes to be like, is this thing on? Is this recording? I think I might just give up on life if it doesn't record this time. Emma, the podcast manager, editor, producer, talked me into getting a new mic, and me and tech don't go too well. I don't read instructions, which does not help. Emma is awful good at her job and sends me videos and all the things to try and keep me right, but sure, I would need supervised at all times, but hopefully it works. What is the crack? How are yous? This episode is going out on, let me check. It is the 2nd of October. Wow. Wow. I am officially 37. It was my birthday on the 23rd of September. I unfortunately had a UTI. I haven't actually had one in ages. And it was so painful. I was convinced it was an antibiotic, but it wasn't. It was a UTI. And I just slept the Monday and Tuesday. Whatever work I had booked in, I completed. But I tried to rest as much as I can, and unfortunately all the birthday plans of fine dining and get my nails done and pampered were scratched. I have been sharing with you my crack. So recently, September's actually been quite hard in terms of feeling grief. It's my birthday and my dad's anniversary at the start of the month. And I suppose grief comes in these different waves, and it has only been 2 years since my dad's died. And the first year was like, I wasn't even on this planet. I was this numb potato surviving, and I'm thawing out. Seems my life is just a journey of becoming a numb potato and coming back to being a human again. And yeah, so I noticed the heaviness in my body, being really tired, those sort of symptoms, feeling low. I felt like, when you've just got dropped, that was the feeling, like you feel sick to your stomach. But a big cry helped me out, and I actually felt bipolar one day because I felt so low in the morning time. But a big cry definitely shifts things. So I'm sure that for anybody who needs a big cry. I definitely don't cry enough. I think maybe we need one cry a week. I'd be lucky if I get a good cry a month, and I try my best. And I'm very envious of all you who cry a lot. It's so healthy. It's so good for us. The wave effect has finished. Oh, well, it's finishing today. What a month. What a month. And I've started my course with Gabor Mate. I started that last week, or 2 weeks ago it would be now that this is aired. And it's intense. I said his name wrong, of course. I said Gabor Mate, and I was quickly corrected, Gabor Mate. Trust me to say someone's name wrong. But the course is intense. It's intense. There's so much. I wouldn't expect anything else from Gabor Mate, to be fair. There's a lot to get through, but I mean, I could listen to him talk for days. And he reminded me the job that I do is bring people to their pain. That's what healing is. It's a weird one, isn't it? You're choosing to sit with your pain because our suffering comes from avoiding the pain. Because when we avoid pain, we dampen our emotions, we avoid part of ourselves, and then we lose connection with ourselves. And we also pay the price with the levels of pleasure and joy and happiness we can experience in this life. And no wonder so many people choose not to heal, but also it's not available to everybody too. Some people have been through so much in their lives or from a different generation that it's just not available to them. So it really is such a privilege for us who are able to do the work of healing, because it ripples out into our communities. And for those who don't have the education, the services to support them. And yeah, it's just really important work for the whole world, especially at the minute, is to sit with ourselves. And that's what the wave effect is. It seems so simple, right? But that's it. We're so addicted to doing the physically hard things, but we find it impossible to sit and be, yet we would be like, sure, what's sitting there going to do? Sitting there is not going to do anything. But then why would we resist it so much if it wasn't doing anything, right? And so this group of women have been incredible in all the ways we meet this work. And I do think this is why I think I'm good at my job, is because I'm terrible at healing. I was the most avoidant, most resistant, most cynical, asked all the questions person in the class. And it changed my life, being able to sit and be myself. And I never thought that was something I'd ever be able to do. And it is a privilege to help others do that. So thank you to everybody who took part in the course and who listens to this podcast, or any of the work around healing, just connecting and having colleagues and people who are devoted to changing the world by changing themselves. What is my other crack? My other crack is I'm obsessed with Sabrina Carpenter. Are you? I mean, these younger women are really showing us that the future is bright for women and how much things have changed. Sabrina is super sexy and unapologetic about it. I'm so here for it. Along with, I keep on saying her name wrong, Chapel Rowan. Is that right? Am I being a complete boomer and butchering that? I'm a millennial, by the way. Interestingly enough, is that she's putting boundaries in place. No, you can't take a photograph of me when you want, and saying no and protecting herself. And she's being called all the names under the sun. Yet, if we look at Cillian Murphy, he clearly says that if you've seen him in the street, he will have a conversation with you, but he will not get a photograph with you. And yet he's so sexy. No one calls him all the names. I'm also rewatching Maid. If you haven't watched Maid on Netflix, it's a powerful piece around how the systems are designed against single women and domestic abuse, and how much things need to change. And it's really an issue that's really coming to the surface with everything that's going on in the world right now. The violence against women is epidemic. I have nothing else really to report. I have been deep in my work. I'm having a party this Friday though with my housemate Katrina, which will be good crack. But other than that, I have been going to bed at 9 and getting up at 6. That's been my life in September. My life when I lead the wave effect courses, and I really enjoy. Sometimes you just really need routine, especially when we're in bed and change or going through a change, moving out of summer, and then the next one will be in January, the start of a new year. It's always nice to have these rituals in place, isn't it? Okay, so the topic this week is growing hotter, wiser, older, because it is my birthday. And this episode was named by Emer O'Brien because she hit the nail on the head when she said that to me. It's so true. I definitely feel that. As you get older, you definitely get hotter and a wee bit wiser. And I wanted to talk around age. Is it called ageism? And growing, that's what Lauren Kavanagh, a girl that I work with, said. The privilege to grow older, not getting older, growing older, is riddled with sexism and misogyny because the same rules do not apply to males. We view a woman getting older as embarrassing, typically, and a man gets sexier as he gets older. If a woman's single and child free when she's older, she's a spinster. And even that name has emotion to it, right? It has charged, the energy around that word. It isn't sexy, right? Yet a man is a bachelor, which has a sexy energy to it. And I think it's really important that we shed the conditioning we have around aging, especially as women. I feel it's very different for each of us, depending on our age, depending on how our mothers and grandmothers and the women in our life met aging. And if you're anything like me and you grew up, I was born in 87, if you grew up in the 90s and noughties, very few women in their 20s had boundaries, had confidence to take up space, such as if we look at the likes of Sabrina Carpenter and Billie Eilish is showing. I mean, they're probably the first females to be protected and supported in that world. And then in the decades I grew up in, it was so taboo. You know, there was even this thing, I'm sure most of you have heard of this if you're similar age to me. You know, you don't ask a woman her age as if she had to appear 20 something forever. I find the conditioning around aging just really boring. I mean, I'm just personally bored of it. And I think it's due to my upbringing around it. And so I think this is a good exercise that you can do is, you know, think about or ask your grandmother, your mother's relationship to aging. My grandmother, for example, God love her, she had her seventh baby when she was 37, I think. And she said she felt so ashamed that she never left the house, which is so sad. And, you know, it just shows you how the world changes. And then it's so grim that people are called geriatric pregnancies if you're, is it over 35? I mean, it just makes someone feel shit. I mean, why do we still need to lose that language? And even the energy that that word geriatric has with it, you know, it's not going to make someone feel good. And some of my friends who had babies around 40 said that, like, it just made them feel grim and just did not make them feel good or safe or supported through their pregnancy. Also, my granny, so my granda was a toy boy by like 5 years. And so my granny always lied to me about her age. I never knew what age she was. And that was another thing, you know, that's embedded in us. Traditionally, you know, the man should be older and the female younger. But thank God that's changed because now I think we're all in the same boat, aren't we? Or the same thought train where an older man and a younger girl is just like eye roll. Sorry, but it is. Whereas an older woman and a younger man sexy. So it is. And my granny, my dad's mum actually went out with a guy 20 years younger than her for a very long time. So I think that teaches me, and I hope it's sharing that story teaches all of us to let go of like all these shoulds and traditions and just be open. You never know what age your next love will be and what age you will be when you meet them. And then on top of that, along with my granny's conditioning around age, my mum was like super depressed whenever she got older and did not talk about aging very well. And I think I strongly rejected that, which now is a blessing because I really was really annoyed at her the way she talked about aging. You know, hated the idea of being 40 or 50. And the way she talked, it just really got underneath my skin. And that was a gift for me because then I really rejected that conditioning around aging to a degree. Obviously, none of us are free from the conditioning as a woman around our weight and around aging and all those deeply ingrained ideas that are in our culture. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we all are expected to move at the same pace, that we're all expected to get married and have our first baby and have a house by 30. And how deep that is, that we're all expected to do the one, two, three, four. And it's such a hard thing to let go of. And that's great for you if your life does go one, two, three, four. But for most people, that's not going to be the case. You know, you're not going to have your career sorted in your 20s. And again, we're the first generation too to change career. You know, our grandparents and probably our parents, it was one job for life due to the way the world was then. And so be open to how different life is and to let go of the voice of our parents, which is so strong in our ears, right? And wanting to please them too, because my grandparents were raging at me when I changed job. They thought I was crazy, you know, because they grew up from West Belfast in the Troubles and Catholics were lucky to get work, you know. And so if I had listened to them, I would have stayed in the one job for life and never even changed company. And that's another thing then. So my grandparents definitely influenced me. They wanted me to have a house by 30 and I was on path for that, saving away. And then I realized I don't want to buy a house. I don't want to have ties. I don't want to have roots. And I spent that money going traveling with my best friend when I was 30 and it's the best thing I ever did. And don't get me wrong, my grandparents were raging. My grandparents brought me up, by the way, if you're new to listening to this. And they thought it was ridiculous. And I think that was actually one of the hardest decisions I've made is to spend time not progressing my career or deepen in my education and to just have fun. Isn't that awful? That's how conditioned we are to always be producing or bettering ourselves, that we can't just have the crack for a few months. It's mental, I feel. And so if you're younger, if you've never just taken a few months to have fun and relax, do it. Honestly, it's the happiest, and I think that's a key to looking youthful or being youthful more so, is having fun and relaxing, because youth and being youthful is not to do with ages, I don't think. It's to do with your energy. It's whether your energy is young, whether you're young at heart, because I know some people who are just consumed with worry from a young age and they seem like they're 80. And then there's people like Gabor Mate who run about like they're 24. So I feel that youth is definitely something we can cultivate, and choosing to stay young and choosing to be young at heart. And then I do think, right, when it comes to being in your 30s, is probably, well, they say, listening to older people, they say it's the trickiest decade in terms of dating if you're a woman who wants kids, right? Or if you're a woman who's debating whether to have kids, because it's tick tock in terms of your fertility. So it puts a lot of pressure on dating, and they say it's really pressurized years. And I've read stories and reports of women who were glad when it was over. A few friends who have said that to me, that they were glad when they realized they would never have kids, and the pressure that it eased off their minds and their hearts, and they were able to start enjoying life and take the pressure off dating again. And so, similar to that, I think I feel differently now because I'm 37 and single, right? But if I was 37 and with somebody, it would be totally different, because I would have to have kids, because I do want kids, right? So I think it depends on whether you've met someone, or perhaps if you're someone who is wanting to have kids alone. Where right now for me, that's not for me. And so I remember when I was like 33, 34, and I was in a relationship, and I definitely wanted to have the plans in place to have kids. Yes, it's all to do with like your circumstance, which shifts things, whether you've met someone and whether you want to make the choice to be a parent on your own, or you want to make the choice to be a parent with somebody, or not at all. And I wanted to share around aging also, because I know a lot of people, well, I think a lot of people will connect with this, because I know a lot of the women I work with do. So I think, feel like I say this every week. 3 people died in 18 months belonging to me. So it was my granny, a year later my dad, and 6 months later my granda. But after my granny died, the next month I broke up with my boyfriend at the time. And then I was just consumed by, because I knew my dad was going to die within the next 12 months. But then once my dad died, I became consumed. I had to meet somebody. There was such a big hole inside of me. I wanted to fill it outside of me. And my energy was all off. I attracted all the wrong things. And I just wanted someone to give me the love that I had lost. And I do feel when traumatic things happen, it does disconnect you from your own love. That was definitely my experience, and it's a common experience. And really what I needed to do was the practice loving myself rather than seeking outside myself. And so I read the book. It's around here somewhere. Conversations in Love. It's just behind me. And it was what I needed to read, because in the book it talks about different conversations around love. It talks about wanting kids. It talks about the ending of long relationships, leaving marriages, divorce, death, the death of friendships, all the ways in which we love and lose. And in it, it talks about a woman who desperately wanted to meet someone and have kids, and she decided to do the practice of accepting that mightn't happen for her, and to make her life as fabulous as possible, and to really love herself and to love her life. And her whole energy and focus changed. And of course, she met somebody and she had a baby. And that's really my focus at the minute. So for me, 35 was so traumatic. I was very depressed, struggled to get out of bed, really hard year. and 36 was the healing getting better again in my personal life. And for me, 37 is just about, I'm feeling excited about it. Like it's going to be really sexy and fabulous because I feel like we're all in the same boat. Like the past few years have been chaos. Like fair play to you if you've had good years, because I know some of you's had, some of my friends have had great past few years. And it doesn't mean bad things are going to come, by the way. It just means you have an up and then relaxation. There's a book called Conscious Loving, it's really good, and it talks that life doesn't have to be ups and downs. But naturally there will be downs, but don't be worrying just because everything's going good for you that it's gonna go bad, but more so that you'll just have a period of things will be more relaxed. But for me, my life was definitely contracted through lockdown and then with loss, which so many of you have shared the same past 5 years being shite, for want of a better word. And so, yeah, I am focusing on loving myself and loving my life and creating a life that I love. And I really believe in that. I really believe that the more relaxed you are, the more in love, a state of love you are, the more everything works out and flows. When we're in fear, when we don't love ourselves, we seek outside of ourselves. There's like this frantic, pushing, forceful, and anxious energy, which just throws everything off. And it's really hard to trust and have patience, especially when awful things have happened, when you've had your heart broke many times with, for example, trying for a baby or experiencing loss like that. They're huge things, and it takes time to trust the world again, to trust nature again, and to heal from that. And everything that I've read in all my experiences, nothing is more true to me than that. And that's all that I can focus on for me in my personal life, is to be a state of love and to relax and trust the flow. And obviously you need to take action and put yourself out there if you do want to meet somebody and have kids, but not to a point where it's making you suffer. And that's where the balance is of, yes, of course, putting effort in, but not where you're not loving yourself. I'm going to have to be really honest. When it comes to the aging thing, I actually have a wee bit of judgment, or I just feel really bored when people be like, oh, I'm in my 30s now, I'm not the way I used to be. My body's getting old. And it's like, well, take care of it. I mean, it's not the way it used to be. Like, look at people in their 50s and 60s now. They're absolute rides. I mean, I couldn't be more excited to age. Have you seen people? Like, look at Gillian Anderson, who isn't completely great these days. Christina Aguilera, though, I'd love to know who her surgeon is. But it's taking care of yourself, moving your body. Like in your 20s, you're always running about, you're always with your mates. Maybe it's just you need to spend more time with your friends and running about again. I think too, what has been a blessing in my life in a weird way, right? Obviously, I feel like for me, a blessing was how negative my mummy was about aging. And I just saw that as such a waste of time, a waste of life, a waste of health, a waste of her energy to be worrying about her number, and how the patriarchy feeds off that. Like, fuck that. That's a gift. And also that I've had friends who died young. You know, I lost a friend who just 20 passed away, and oh my, it's a funny story. So it's so funny when I think back on this. So we were 20, right? And we were getting ready for a night out. And Rachel, this is the girl who passed away when we were 20. We were all going on a night out. And she goes to me, and we were 20 at the time, right? We were turning 21 that coming year. It was the January time, or it would have been the start of February, right? So this is the time of year. It was Rachel literally just turned 20. And she goes, Carla, oh my God, we're going to have to start going downstairs in the bot now. We are so old. Isn't that crazy? Like how some 20-year-olds think. Insane. And I was laughing, and God love her. Rachel passed away the next day through an illness she had. And so death has changed my perspective on it. And I know not everybody's had that, so it's not fair of me to be Judge Jude the way I can be when people express the condition that they have around aging. There's a bit of me that just feels really bored by it, and I can be quite judging around it. And then another friend of mine, her sister died at only 35. And I think when you've been touched by that, when you've been touched by someone who really wants to live and doesn't get the privilege of growing older, it's very hard to not celebrate getting closer to 40 or to be middle aged, as my friends keep calling ourselves now. We're middle aged now. And if there's one thing that I would beg you to do now, that you are going to go, yes, here she goes, there's Carla selling her yoga and her breath work and her meditation. But honest to God, have you ever seen an old looking yoga teacher? Seriously. And I have had Botox. I think I've had like 3 times. Like you can see, got wrinkles. I haven't had Botox in like a year now, right? I'm not against it. However, if you're going to spend money on anything, spend it on therapy. Spend it on learning to breathe, because it will transform your health and your connection to life force. Honestly, because the more you're able to relax, the less stress the body, and the body won't age as quickly. Of course, it is scary. I can't deny that it isn't scary as we get older because we face our mortality. But I think it's important to keep death close. I always get death in every episode, don't I? Yeah, because we are all going to die, you know, and that'll help us live. And also, when people know that they're going to die in terms of months, that sort of thing, they move slower. They don't rush at life. And when you rush at life, life flies by. Where that's the importance of learning to slow down and take pauses so that we're not rushing to the end of our lives, quite literally. And another part which I think is important is having friends who are older, having friends who are 60 and living their best lives, really, and having friends who are in their 20s who keep you young, and just having that mix of ages, because it's important, isn't it? Because your older friends can give you advice, your younger friends give a different perspective, and we need all those different spices and blends, because if we're just around our same age group, we can think that we all need to move at the same pace, which isn't the crack. Let's finish with some examples of how people did it differently. Some people send some examples in. So, for example, my granda got his driving license at 60. I have a friend who, at 47, got a loan of £10,000 and she turned it into millions in terms of her business. Oh, I know one woman who wrote in who ran her first marathon at 52. I learned to handstand at 30. My dad never lived with a girl ever in his life, right? Until he was like 53. And he had his first engagement in his 50s, first marriage in his 50s. So you never know. I know an 80-year-old woman, a woman in her 80s who has had heartbreak. She's had 2 marriages end, and she's still open for love, open for dating. You know, that's what you want. And then there's these examples. I don't know if Instagram tells you what you want to hear, but Instagram's telling me what I want to hear, saying that I can have babies in my 40s. So Cameron Diaz is having a baby at 51. And then Sienna Miller's boyfriend, so Sienna Miller's around 41, and her boyfriend's absolutely great and 25. And I think she's having a baby to him. You know, life takes all these different shapes and forms. And then there was an Asian actress who at 73, I'm going to absolutely butcher her name. No, I'm not going to do it. But Google, a 73-year-old Asian woman got nominated for an Oscar in Minari, is the film. Vera Wang started her business at 40. Oprah Winfrey started her late. Let me see what age she was. Hold on, let me Google it. Oh, Oprah Winfrey started her career at 32. So there's loads of examples, way more than what I'm given. So yeah, do the act of rebellion. The same that we're doing against diet culture and having to be a certain size. Notice what way you speak about aging, what way you view certain ages, and don't let age stop you. Life would be very boring if we all moved at the same pace, if we all got married at 30 and all our careers were sorted by this age and blah, blah, blah. To finish off, I am 37, single, child free, but we love babies. And I'm really excited for this next year. I have a really good feeling about it. And I'm really grateful for the women in their 40s, the women in their 50s, the women in their 60s, 70s, 80s who live fabulous full lives, who make me excited to get older. Because especially when I look at me, this is a good exercise you can do. If you compare yourself to 10 years ago, I mean, see, when I was 27, right? I didn't do yoga. I didn't meditate. I didn't handstand. I hated myself. I hated my body. I was very into dieting. One of the good things was I started having crack. I started partying then. Trauma made me really serious in my early 20s. So that was one good thing that was shifting at 27. And I was actually starting to fall apart. And that's always a good sign that you are going to find yourself and get happier and have a better life. And, fast forward to now, I can sit with myself. I can take care of myself. I'm not obsessed with dieting. I can handstand. I'm strong in my body. I can move. I get to help people through my job. I'm actually doing something that I love. When I was 27, I felt like I had no creativity and I didn't care about anything. And I didn't see a future for myself. I didn't know what I'd end up doing. And so, yeah, if you are in a phase in your life where you can't see, you don't know anything, know that that's an exciting place to be. It doesn't feel it, but it is. And to get to know your passions and your creativity, because we all have them inside ourselves. We just get labelled from a young age that we're mathematical and shit at art and all that crack. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry if this was completely shite and all over the place, but this is attempt number 2 and it was better and better in the morning. See, it's 3 o'clock in the day. I've been up from 6, this is like 6 o'clock for most people. My brain isn't at its optimum. If you've enjoyed this episode, I would love if you would share it with somebody. If you would tell a friend. Thank you so much for listening. I have been your host, Carla McGreevy, and I hope that you tune in next week.